Hello, this is Edward Newville. Welcome back to our podcast webinar. This is Christy William, who has joined us again to discuss about naturalization and citizenship in the United States. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you. Thank you for
Great,
having me.
great. So, this week the United States celebrated Constitution Day, or more Citizenship Day, and is American federal observance that recognizes the adoption of the Constitution and those who have become U.S. Citizens. And it's usually celebrated on September 17th in recognition of the day in 1787 that delegates to the Constitutional Convention signed the document in Philadelphia. So we'll be talking about the benefits of applying for citizenship or naturalization in the United States, and encouraging those who are eligible to apply for citizenships to do so that they are fully part of the American society and can participate in the political process. So what does it mean to naturalize under U.S. law? Well, it's a process by which foreign nationals, or in this case, lawful permanent residents, petition the U.S. government to confer U.S. citizenship on them and all the rights and privileges that comes with it. And the advantages are, you have the right to proclaim that you belong to one of the greatest and most powerful nation on the earth. You can travel to certain places without visas. You can travel outside of the U.S. for a prolonged period of time without having to worry about losing your residency status. You also have a right to contribute to the political process at a state level, at the federal level. You can vote, hold office, of course, sponsor, your relatives. So there are definitely great benefits of becoming a U.S. citizen. And since you are living in the U.S., you are participating in society and paying taxes. It only makes sense to take the next step of finally becoming a U.S. citizen. So, Christy, what is the process, or what must one prove in order to become a U.S. citizen, or to begin the naturalization process?
So there are really three big buckets. First, you must prove that you have lawful permanent resident status in the U.S., and you have to prove that you've had that status for a minimum of 3 years if you obtain your LPR status through your U.S. citizen spouse, or for a minimum of 5 years if you obtain that status in a different form. You must also prove that you did not abandon your LPR status or lawful permanent resident status. And you must also prove that you have good moral character. And that is a broad term. Good moral character, basically in layman's term, means that you must prove to the U.S. government that you're a good person. You're a person of clean character, and the U.S. only wants good people to hold their passport and claim that they are citizens of the United States. So that's another factor that you must satisfy.
So how do they go about in deciding what good moral character is? Is there a period of time that they look at, or decide, well, it's been 3 or 4 years and this happened outside of the 5 years or within the 5 years?
Right.
How do they decide?
So the adjudicating officers at USCIS really have a lot of discretion in determining what they will determine is meet the standard of good moral character sufficiently enough to grant someone's naturalization application. So they look at several factors. So there aren't a list of maybe 10 factors and you meet 3 of those 10 items and then you pass the test. No, there are several things they look at. They look at whether or not you pay taxes. You work in the U.S., you make enough money, you're required to pay taxes. Did you pay taxes? What convictions do you have, if you have any convictions? They look at, whether or not you've met some of your other legal obligations. So for example, if you have a court order to pay child support or spousal support, or you have outstanding tickets, that you haven't paid yet and you're required to pay them by pay them and satisfy them in court. So they look at all those different things, and they then determine whether or not you have sufficiently met the standards, and they look at the 5 years preceding your application.
That's true. Now, and as you said, they have to look at the 5 years preceding your application, but they can also look and consider things that happen outside of those 5 years too, as it applies to what happened within the preceding 5 years. Mm-hmm. Also, for those who may have the question about failure to pay taxes or owing taxes, one key point to remember is that yes, you can owe taxes, but there has to be some kind of agreement with the federal or state level that shows that you are paying taxes or you have agreed to pay your back taxes. And so those are things to consider and keep in mind. One thing I also want to think, even if you went to a trial or you have a criminal matter that was thrown out, individuals are quick to expunge those documentation. My advice is that it's better to wait until you become a citizen to expunge it. But if you do go ahead and expunge those records, make sure you have a copy of the original court document, or at least a copy of the court document that you can present. Because even though the record might have been expunged at the state level, USCIS still requires you to provide to them the basis of the conviction or what happened during that arrest. So keep in mind. Now, Christy, what about civil issues such as like bankruptcy or bad credit? Like, can officers look back and say, well, you just have accrued a lot of debt. Like, we don't want you, to be part of our society. Like, can that come into consideration? Like bankruptcy?
I've gotten that question a lot as well, and my answer to that is poverty or financial difficulty is really not one of the statutory requirements to obtain U.S. citizenship. And so if you're having financial difficulties, that shouldn't be a problem. Officers, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not aware of any statutory requirements that say you must have a debt-free history and you must make a certain amount annually or monthly in order to apply for U.S. citizenship. Poverty or financial difficulty or bad credit there aren't requirements for U.S. citizenship.
Definitely. Now, I also get the question for people asking me is that, what is the selective service? Because I know part of it in the good moral character is whether or not males between the ages of 18 and 26 registered for the selective service. Is it some kind of a draft or some kind of recruitment database to go and fight in the wars or something?
So it's not a draft. The U.S. does not have the draft system anymore, but the selective service system basically is just the federal government collecting, information on, men within that age range, 18 to 26, and just they're signing up and saying, basically, we'll keep this list of eligible men who might be able to, help the United States address any national security issues that come up in the future. And then so they can go back to that list, and just in case they want to bring the draft system back or they want to bring back another system, whether it's voluntary or not, they can go back to that list of people who have signed up and say, we have a situation and we want to address it in our nation, and we have a list of people who have signed up for the selective service to serve our military in some sort to protect our
Yeah.
country. Right?
Okay. Now, is there? I know it says 18 to 26, but what if you just didn't sign up, or what if you didn't know that you had to sign up? Is there a period of time where that requirement is waived, or let's say you're 25 and you haven't signed up? Can you still sign up?
Yeah, so you can sign up between 20, the cutoff age is 26.
Mm-hmm.
So from 18 to 26, you should certainly sign up, and signing up is free. I wrote the website down somewhere here. It is www.sss.gov, and you can go to that website and just sign up for free. Just fill in, the form and submit it, and you'll get a confirmation email, and that's it.
And also, for those who are not sure whether or not they have signed up, you can go onto that same sss.gov, or you can do a search for Selective service, and there's a way you can put in your social security number, birth date, and you'll be able to find out whether or not you signed up. Now, let's say you're 27, 28 years old and you haven't signed up, but you're applying for citizenship. It's too late to sign up. What are your options?
So, well, first you should have a very good reason for why you didn't, sign up. But let me back up a little bit. So a 1999 policy memorandum to INS, well then INS, which is now USCIS, that policy memo instructed the agency and adjudicators to deny naturalization applications of men who failed to register for the Selective service. And so men within the 18 and 26 age range who did not sign up, their applications would be denied. And that really goes to the good moral character. And so remember, we just talked about good moral character. They stop to look back. They look at 5 years preceding the application period. So if you're between 27 and 31, you're smack in the middle of that 5-year period, right?
Yeah.
And so if not signing up for Selective service then counts against your eligibility based upon good moral character, then you're in a tight spot. Now, there is an opportunity to explain why, you didn't sign up, whether or not that's sufficient, that's left up to the adjudicator. But I would certainly encourage anyone within that age range, 27 and 31, who did not sign up, males, not women, men, between 27 and 31 who did not sign up, they should definitely talk to an attorney to assist them in addressing the issues that may arise.
And also, one thing that I would point out is that when you fill out the Form I-45 green card application, above your signature line where you sign the application, there's a box, or there's a box above it that explains that you're signing this application. Included in that paragraph is an acknowledgement or a waiver that says that by you signing this form for your green card, you're also registering for the Selective service. And so for males in between the age of 18 to 26 and whatnot who got their green cards within that time period, you may have already signed up for Selective service. So that's something else that always comes up, and that's something at least I always double check. So that's just one little piece of advice that I found out the past years. Now, if you're over 31 years old and you haven't signed up, you're out of the woods, and that's fine, right?
Yes, because that's outside of that 5-year, good moral character period, where you would have to then explain, why you didn't register. So you're in the clear.
Gotcha. Now, there's I've gotten a few questions about the whole idea of revoking one naturalization or issues of revocation. That they're taking away citizenship status. And I just wanted to just touch on it, briefly as to what that really means. On the Form N400, the form that you fill out for your naturalization, there are a list of questions that they ask you. Have you ever done this? And a lot of those questions, one would say, well, how would the officer know, or how will that come up? Well, some of these questions are, have you ever committed a crime for which you have not been arrested? And a lot of times clients or individuals check, no. How will the officer find out? Well, it turns out in several cases that individuals who are convicted of crimes actually plead to events that happened prior to their naturalization. So it comes in that you were aware of a crime that happened that you had not been arrested for. And so that means that you provided, by you checking the box, no, you lied on your application, and that's grounds for revocation.
Right.
Also, you have the issues of now coming up individuals who were previously in deportation proceedings, and their fingerprints are now coming up to show that they either changed their names. Those are issues that come up where individuals provided things that were not true. So those are merely like the crux of what these news are talking about, revocation proceedings. But in any event, if that ever happens or comes up to you down the line, the first thing I would say, consult with a lawyer to make sure that you understand the parameters, or what the situation is, and whether or not there's a defense to you, for you. And so the takeaway from this citizenship, this naturalization push, one is definitely, there are great and big advantages to becoming a U.S. citizen. If you ever travel outside of the U.S., you have the support, you have the backing of the State Department. You have the chance to travel, visa-free to many places. And also you're part of a great political society where you can vote, you can make laws, and you can be part of a society in which you are living in, where you're paying taxes, and you have a chance to contribute and to the decision process that will directly affect you, the lives of your children and loved ones. And definitely, I think it's incumbent upon everyone who is eligible to critically think about it and see how they can be a part of that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as always, Christy, as you know, is a dynamic lawyer. She is involved, or she's at the forefront, in the front line of these, massive, changes that we see happening. So anytime that she can come out to my office and we can talk about what changes, are affecting the lives of citizens or those who want to become a citizen, I appreciate it very much. So it's always a pleasure to have you.
Always a pleasure working with you and coming to your office. It's definitely exciting to be a part of this discussion. Definitely grateful to be here.
Well, thank you very much, and look for our next webinar podcast, as we call it.